Well, thank you, Claire, for agreeing to speak with us today. I just wanted to introduce Claire Schlemme, who's the CEO and founder of Renewal Mill. And we're just going to talk to her about a little bit about the markets and how her company fits into that market. And she'll tell you about her company along the way. So if we can start off, if you can maybe tell me a little bit about the origins of your company and how you fit into this market and what your current takeaways about the state of the industry is, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Renewal Mill is an upcycled food and ingredients company. So, we're looking for places in the food system where nutrition would otherwise be going to waste and making sure that we keep it in the food system and get that nutrition to people. The company started after I had previously co-founded a juice company. And it was in that role that I saw just how inefficient food production can be. So we'd end each day of juicing with just mounds of this fruit and vegetable pulp, which arguably is one of the most nutritious parts of the fruits and vegetables. So from like a nutrition standpoint and also from a financial standpoint, it didn't really make sense that we were throwing all of this away. So that's where I really got the motivation started to figure out, are there solutions here? Can we look for ways to make the food system more efficient? And then I had a very fortuitous meeting with the owner of a tofu factory, and we bonded over these byproducts. He had something very similar to my juice pulp, which was it was the pulp coming from the soy milk making process, which is the precursor to making tofu. That pulp was called okara. And about 60% of the mass of the soybeans that he was, very carefully sourcing and bringing into his facility to make this premium tofu, 60% of that mass was leaving in the form of this okara waste, arbitrarily, described as waste. And so when I realized there was this opportunity in the food manufacturing, previously with my juice business, we'd been at the retail scale, pretty small, but here was this opportunity to access a huge amount of this byproduct and really see it as just a raw material whose use hasn't been discovered yet. That was really exciting. And that's where, we got our hands on some. We realized how amazing it was as an ingredient. And that was the beginning of Renewal Mill. And then we started to see from there, it was not just a juice problem or a soy milk problem. There were a lot of places in the food system where we're processing out fiber and protein just because it doesn't fit kind of that direct path from input to output that a food manufacturer might be focused on. So we really saw ourselves as bridge builders and having that ability to come in and think more holistically about what's being produced and make sure that we can capture that nutrition and keep it in the food supply chain.
Good. Well, thanks.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. So in terms of the market and the upcycle market, what have you seen in terms of the growth of that market? Are there organizations that are now looking into this in more detail?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to be to be a very beginning part of the market and be watching it grow and be part of that growth. When we started Renewal Mill about 8 years ago, we often had to kind of begin at the very beginning when we told people the story of what we were doing and introduce the concept of food waste and talk about why it matters and how we should be capturing this so-called waste and upcycling it. And now with so much that's been, the market's been growing, knowledge has been growing. There's been a lot of awareness campaigns around it. People are aware that food waste is a problem. They're aware that it's connected to sustainability. They're looking for solutions. A lot of people are familiar with upcycling, although there's still an educational challenge there and a component that we're working on. But it's been fascinating to see what a change it's been over the past 8 years in terms of just awareness about the issue and how we can solve the issue. And with that, we've seen a lot of companies come into the space, and we we saw a need early on for some organization with these companies that are working on this problem. So we were one of a handful of companies that co-founded the Upcycled Food Association about 6 years ago. And so that was, I think, about 6 or 7 of us coming together saying, this is a rising tide lifts all boats situation. Like, let's work on, having some formalities to this industry and really getting the word out there about what we're doing. That has since grown to almost, I think, 250 members now. And one of the most kind of critical pieces of work that the group did was put into place the certification and standards around what it means to be upcycled. And that was really helpful because that allowed us to get out ahead of any like greenwashing that might happen as people saw that this was trending. We've seen with various food shows and also in food publications coming out of Kroger, coming out of Whole Foods, upcycling has been trending in the past few years. And so as consumers are more aware of it, as they're continuing to demand these types of climate-friendly foods, we wanted to make sure that there was some actual substance behind the term upcycling and make sure that when somebody saw that, they could be confident that it meant there was an actual quantifiable reduction in food waste because of the purchase of the product. Defining actually what it means to be upcycled. That was the first piece of work that the Upcycled Food Association did. And the second was that certification, both of which have been really helpful in kind of bringing some more structure to the overall market of upcycled food.
No, that's great. It seems like the market's come a long way in a very, very short period of time. So I'd like to, if you can talk a little bit about like what this has meant for Renewal Mill. So what are some recent milestones or accomplishments that your company has achieved?
Yeah. So, seeing the interest from retailers has been really critical for us with our growth. It's definitely helped us get a lot of initial conversations going. And I should back up too and say, we work on both sides. We have retail products that utilize upcycled ingredients. We also sell the upcycled ingredients to other food companies. So the demand that we see in the market is helpful for both sides of the business. I mentioned that Whole Foods named it as a trend. We launched nationally with Whole Foods about 2 years ago, right on the kind of at the same moment that the trend was named. And that was a really helpful way to, really grow the retail presence that we have with our upcycled products. And then also we've now have a few large ingredient customers that are returning customers that are purchasing some of our upcycled ingredients from us, largely due to the fact that they have this quantifiable reduction in food waste that they're looking for with their end product that they're formulating with it. So it's been really, I think the growth of the market has obviously been a big way that we're able to grow our sales. I will just caveat that and say, I think that the trending nature of upcycled foods is a great way to get those initial conversations, but it's also really important that we're still thinking very carefully and very intentionally about product market fits, because we can't, we don't want to just create anything with an upcycled ingredient or just bring any, ingredient to market that's technically upcycled. We want to make sure that it's fitting the other things that customers are currently demanding, because that's ultimately the drive that's going to allow us to grow and allow us to have greater impact.
Okay, thanks. And obviously, upcycling, as you mentioned, has a big impact on the environment. Can you talk us through some of the social and environmental impacts that your company has made?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main metrics that we're tracking, so we're looking at like the actual poundage of waste diverted. We're looking at how that translates into emissions avoided, greenhouse gas emissions avoided. And then we're also looking at like water saved. So water, that's that we avoid having to use. So the greenhouse gas emission savings, that really comes from two places when we're looking at upcycled ingredients. We call them like the upstream benefits and the downstream benefits. The upstream is coming from the fact that our product's life cycle is starting at the moment that it's produced in a food manufacturing facility. So, for example, the okara is that pulp from the soy milk making process. As soon as that's coming out of the soy milk machine, that's the beginning of that life cycle for that product, which means that when we're thinking about the carbon footprint of this product, we don't have to include the growing, the harvesting, that initial transport, because that would all have happened anyway. So we are starting right at that point at the factory. So we get some benefits of not having additional planting taking place. And that's really important because there's a lot of food that's grown and gets wasted. So this allows us to be more efficient in how we're using stuff that's already being grown and already using all of those resources like land and fertilizer and water. And then we have the downstream benefits, which comes from the fact that we are plugging this food back into the food supply chain. The nutrition is going to people instead of being wasted. And we consider that waste being going into animal ag or being composted or being, the worst case scenario would be that it's going to, hauled into landfill, and there it's going to decompose, it's going to have the methane emissions, and we're going to have, that piece of it as well. So the fact that it gets cycled back to people with that that nutrition gets cycled back to people, there's the benefits there as well. So we're tracking all of those. The easiest way that we do it is just by looking at, the benefits per pound of our ingredients that are used. So for okara, we see that there's a greenhouse gas savings of about like 5 to 6 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions per pound of flour that's used. So knowing that, we're then able to obviously take that and understand what the impact of an individual product is, or the impact of a certain company that's buying, a large amount of the ingredient.
Right, thanks. So, and I know the answer to this, did you ever encounter any difficulties in your early days as a company, and what startup happened that taught you valuable lessons that you still apply today?
Oh, that is such a good question. I mean, for definitely, I feel like that is the nature of a startup and doing something that is, doesn't have a very clean, specific playbook that's like done before. We're kind of forging our own path as we go, taking lessons where we can. So it does feel like we're learning new things every day. Some of them specific to upcycling, specific to running an impact company. Others just, I think related to being a company and how we want to be financially sustainable in a financial sense too, not just in the, kind of from the impact piece of things. I'm trying to think, I think one lesson that we learned early on was just, and I wouldn't say that this was necessarily like directly taught to us, but we started out in a lot of like programs where we were working with other founders with early stage companies. We had a lot of really great mentors and advisors early on. So part of kind of these incubators in the Bay Area, we were part of the FS6 incubator. So being part of these incubator programs really allowed us to see how great it was to learn from each other and to learn, really take lessons from people who had, from mentors and advisors who had been doing work before us. And we really have taken that and used that really successfully, I think, in the business as we've grown. We're a very collaborative company. We really love partnerships, working with other companies, finding ways that we can have these win-win or win-win-win opportunities with other companies. And I think that is really essential, especially when you're in this role of a bridge builder in the upcycling space. Like, you're really a connector, and it's so important to be able to have that collaborative piece of our DNA.
Okay, thanks. So, in terms of the relationship with Beyond Impact, how did you begin working with Beyond Impact, and how has that relationship benefited you, and has working with Beyond Impact supported your goals and objectives?
Yeah, so I was actually just thinking about this. I think I mean, it was very, very early on in the company. I want to say it must have been, maybe 7 years ago or so that we first started talking with Beyond. And what drew us to Beyond was, I think there was some alignment I don't think there was some alignment in missions that we were really drawn to, which was, the plant-based nature of the work that Beyond is doing, and the idea of wanting to have that impact. And we were, obviously that was a big motivating factor for us in founding the company. And, I think having an investor who is on the same page with that mission and with that goal is just so important. And Beyond's been an amazing supporter of us through different funding rounds, and has been with us and watched us grow. And that's been hugely important to us, to have that close relationship and to have that support, the financial support as we've been growing. And then, of course, there's also I talked about how important collaboration and mentorship is. Beyond has been there. We've had great mentorship from Beyond. It's always a place that we're able to turn to when we have questions or concerns, or we need, a second opinion on something. And also, I feel like every time we kind of check in and chat, there's always an idea of like someone that we should be talking to, and kind of having that pollination with other companies and other people that are in the Beyond network, which has been hugely important as well.
Great, thanks. So, what are the aims of Renewal as you kind of look ahead to the ending of 2024 and going on over the next few years?
Yeah, so we have a couple of main goals. One is that we are working to grow the ingredient side of the business, because we see that as the place where we really see that as like the big opportunity here. We want to be getting these ingredients out in a huge way, right? Because not only is that helpful to us, from a revenue point of view, but it also means that our impact is so much bigger. We can do so much more when we are focused on those ingredients, which is really exciting to us. So we're working on that. We're expanding our upcycled ingredient portfolio, which is also very exciting. We have some new dedicated supply streams coming on that are allowing us to hit different attributes with our upcycled ingredients. So not only are they upcycled, but they're also able to be certifiably gluten-free. They can be certified non-GMO, different attributes that people are looking for. So kind of going back to what I said, like, you're always looking for a very strong product market fit, where upcycled is kind of like the icing on the cake and not necessarily doesn't need to be the exact driver. Like there's other things that are driving the desire to use the ingredient. And then we also are continuing to look at our retail and food service product lineup that we have. So one thing that's very exciting in there, that's a more of a near-term goal for us, is that we are reformulating our ready-to-eat cookie that already has a home in some e-commerce platforms and in food service channels. And so we'll be relaunching that product within the next 3 months, in Q1 of next year.
All right, all sounds great. Any final details or critical points you'd like to share?
Great question. I'm trying to think if there's something that we haven't touched on yet.
Well, how the journey has been for you, for example.
I think one thing that we've seen with the company as it's been growing too is like really just being aware, like being able to take a step back every now and then, look at what we're doing, and really be able to decide what's working, what's not. I think one lesson that we've learned in the past year that's been tricky, especially for me, who's someone that like sees opportunity everywhere and likes to say yes to everything, is actually being okay with saying no, and being okay and seeing those that ability to put up a boundary or to say no as the way that we're like really getting to those critical yeses that we need for the company. And we've seen that in our financial health, how it's been it's really improved in once we've been able to really focus on the things that matter and focus on the things that are going to get us to be financially sustainable.
All right, well, great, thank you. And just wanted to thank you, Claire, for taking some time out today to talk about these interesting issues. And we're looking forward to working with you in the future and helping you grow. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.